Hello, welcome to the Horus Heresy. I'm your host, Rob, and we today are going to be looking at the rules for the Saturnine Terminators. So this is, I think, maybe the first time on the channel we're going to have like a real big look at some unit profiles. And obviously, very much like with the Old World, and if you don't know, I cover a lot of Old World stuff on the Square-based show. There is so much nuance in what Universal Special Rules, or USRs, add to these unit profiles as well. If you're new to the Horus Heresy and kind of joining me on this journey of either getting back into the Horus Heresy or playing from new, it's going to look overwhelming. But as I've said in my previous videos, or a thing that I'm personally excited about, until we see all the rules and see if there is stuff that's broken or whatever it might be, until then, I'm gonna take this at face value that it's been well thought out and everything's going to be really fun. So that's how I'm going to look at stuff, and there's going to be an overwhelming amount of rules. And for me, that's very exciting. For me, that's really fun because it adds a lot of nuance. And the first thing they're showing off is Saturnine Terminators, which is kind of an interesting place to look at a unit profile in more detail, because ultimately these will be the best of the best infantry that you're likely to see in the game. This should be the ultimate zenith of a troop unit that you can see inside of the game, because there should be nothing else apart from dreadnoughts, I guess, which are in the same class until you start getting to vehicles. Okay, so let's have a look at them, shall we? Their basic profile is solid across the board, but it's their incredible durability that really shines through. They have toughness 6, which is really high, 3 wounds and a 2+ armor save, backed up with a 4+ invulnerable save that's about as solid as it gets for infantry. If you're new to the game, generally, the 2+ armor save means unless you have AP2, they're going to just be rolling 2+ armor saves, which is very survivable. And a 4+ invulnerable save means they're also going to just get to, if you wipe out their armor, they're still going to ignore 50% of the damage because they're going to make their invuln saves as well. So that's really efficient, very effective. And the high toughness means, because you test your strength versus their toughness, you're not necessarily even going to wound them in the first place. So they are pretty much the very best of the best. It's very rare to get infantry with 3 wounds in the Age of Darkness, as are guns dealing more than 2 damage, which means Saturnine Terminators can withstand heavy hits from disintegrators, las cannons, and plasma weapons. What they're really saying there is, if I hit you with a 2 damage weapon, the first one will do 2 damage, and I'll need another one to be able to kill it, which means I lose a point of damage, or I basically lose a shot that isn't going to carry over into the next one. So it takes 2 shots to kill one, where when they're 2 wounds, it's only going to take 1 shot. So that survivability is added onto with the armor save and the invuln save. So it makes them incredibly durable. And obviously, at this point, let's talk about power creep. Let's talk about the comments I may get in the video, and let's talk about how I generally feel about new release stuff. There's a consistent thread and theme that happens across most game systems that the newest thing always has to be the best thing. Now, I've been covering Games Workshop games for 8 years, and oftentimes they have made stuff that they've launched and has been broken, and they've oftentimes launched stuff and it's been terribly, terribly bad. So, which doesn't really key in with the design, the idea that everything new is always the most broken thing or the strongest thing. I would say when we come to looking at these Saturnine Terminators, they're intentionally meant to be like the strongest thing, right, in the game. Now, they might end up being too good. They might be too expensive. They might not be expensive enough, because these things are very solid. But if they cost 180 points per dude, they're probably not as good as if they cost 20 points per dude. So the real question is the points appropriate for how strong they are versus Marines, versus regular Terminators, versus everything else in the game? That becomes a really interesting conversation, which obviously we'll look at in more detail. A, when all of the rules come out, and B, once we've put enough armies on the table and played enough games to really have an idea of how to play them. So I'm very excited about putting these on the table. I think they're cool as hell, and I think a lot of people are into the big shoulder pad meta. But also they might have an instinctive vulnerability that we're not really certain about yet. Maybe there's a particular weapons platform or a vehicle that's just very, very good at gunning these guys down. We'll have to see. Let's keep looking through. There's a trade-off. They are slow with low movement and initiative. So they won't be boating around the battlefield, and they're usually swinging last in melee. Luckily, there are some mitigations for their lack of movement. So there's a big factor as well. They might be very susceptible to melee. We know in the launch box that you can build, there's 6 of these in the launch box. You can build them with double guns on all 6 if you go for the double bombards or you go for the double disintegrators. So you can have 3 with 2 bombards and 3 with 2 disintegrators, or you can mix and match. But there's also a power fist in there as well, or their version of a power fist. So the real question you got to ask yourself is how are you going to build them? Are you going to magnetize them? What's your plan for them? But a double gun platform definitely sounds very scary, but is terrible in close combat. So that's one of the things I'm really, really excited about when looking at Horus Heresy rules and looking at Horus Heresy units, in that there is pros and cons for almost every choice that you make, and every choice that you get to make a lot of choices in the Horus Heresy. Other game systems, 40k and Age of Sigmar, you don't get to make a lot of choices when it comes to your unit, your profiles. And that is really, really good for the people who don't want to have any decision paralysis. I just built a command squad last night for my salamanders, and I decided rule of cool and putting power axes on them. Now, I should have waited until the entire game comes out and decided what weapon I want to put on them, but I wanted to put power axes on them because they look great. And if they're not that good in the game, that doesn't bother me that much, because if I want to make a command squad that's really good in the game, I just buy another box and put some different weapons on them, or whatever I'll do. But I'll also like the axes, so I'll give them a try as well. You can do both. Both things can be something that you would try to do, and that's all right. Anyway, there's a trade-off. They are slow with low movement. We talked about that. So here's a unit profile, and I'm sure for people who maybe haven't really looked at anything in specialist design studios, or maybe even for myself, this is intimidating. Like we said, that 14 profile, that 14 statistics or stats that we have for each unit is crazy. But they talked about the strength and toughness. You can see that here. In fact, actually, let me just make this so we can just see the whole thing, shall we? Here we go. We can see this in kind of more details. It's easier to read. So 200 points. And you start with a unit of 3, and each additional one is going to cost you 60 points. So in the launch box, you're going to have a 380 point unit if you give them no upgrades in those 6 Terminators alone. They move 5 inches, their weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, which is decent. Their toughness 6, their strength 4. They have 3 wounds each, which we talked about. They're a low initiative initiative 3, and they've got 2 attacks each. They've got a little bit the stats are a little bit higher on leadership and cool than a regular Space Marine. Normally, normal Space Marines are all 7s, so they have slightly higher leadership and cool, but it's still not crazy high numbers. Like, they're still like 60% of the time going to pass stuff. They've got bulky 4, explode 6, implacable, advanced, slow, and purposeful. As of yet, I truthfully don't know what some of these things mean. I'm going to come back to these in a bit, and we're going to work it out, or it may even cover it later in the article. But this is a section where we're going to see universal special rules, and we'll be able to see what those things do. Now, some of them might be like a collection of other USRs, and hopefully there's an app or there's some sort of good space where we can quickly cross-reference these. But you're probably going to have to make some little cheat sheets for yourself on what those special rules do mean. You can see what their war gear is as well. They have a plasma bombard and a disruption fist. That's what they come with as standard. And then you have the Oculus targeting auspex and a thermal diffraction field. You can see the traits they have here. They're going to have their allegiance to the Legion Astartes rules. And then you can see the options that you've also got as well. Also, we've got some keywords. Saturnine Terminator Sergeant over here is a sergeant and it's heavy. And then Saturnine Terminator is infantry that's heavy as well. So some keywords for what they are. And we'll probably end up with unit special rule, type special rules. So heavy infantry will have a different set of rules to light infantry, or at least they'll have similar rules but slightly different. Okay, for options, you can see that any model of this unit may have a Saturnine Disruption Fist exchanged for one of the following. So you can have double plasma bombard, and that's just free. So 380 points. You've got what you've got. You've got 2 lots of bombards. Or a twin heavy disintegrator for 10 points. And then any model in this unit can have its plasma bombard exchanged for another heavy disintegrator. So that's going to make 20 points if you want to go for double disintegrators. So that means your unit of 3 is going to be an additional 60 points. So it's 120 points. So it takes you from a 380 point unit of 6 to a 500 point unit. So those upgrades really do stack up in a very specific way. But also it means if you're trying to get the most out the box possible, although they don't have they don't have 12 twin heavy disintegrators, but it means you can add a lot of points if you're getting into the game early. And then any model in this unit with a Saturnine Disruptor Fist may have 1 particle shredder selected for 5 points per model as well. So we can see what those. Now those are stats that we'll see on the unit. Sorry, on the weapon profiles. And I guess this is a point that also happens in the old world. Sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating. I look to see what my unit does. There we go. And I now have to look up and see what my weapon does. I think this is a great opportunity for small little cards, which I think it's kind of weird that GW don't sell. And maybe it's something we could produce, or like we can create, like maybe we can create a website that does it, or I don't really know right now what the plan is, but it's something I'd like to do in the future. But it would be awesome to have like your unit card and then drop the weapon card on top that you have. They do that in Star Wars Legion. That's something you can have with your little weapon card, and it tells you what it does differently. That would be a cool little thing to have. And it would look very fun as well. Maybe have like a unit card thing, like a holder that has all your stuff. Anyway, I'm getting too excited, but that's who I am. We can also see that the Oculix targeting Auspex, which is a machine spirit that allows the wearer to track targets for multiple heavy weapon systems at the cost of mobility. You come equipped with this as standard. When a model with a targeting Auspex is selected to make a shooting attack, if that model's unit remains stationary in the controlling player's preceding movement phase, the model gains Firing Protocol's 2 special rule until the shooting attack is fully resolved. So we're going to go look at this right now. Okay, so every model has that targeting Auspex, which effectively means they can shoot 2 guns if they stand still. Implacable Advance means that they can volley fire with their guns when being charged, for example. Plasma Bombard is their... So, I mean, shooting 2 guns if you stand still, amazing. That's great. And also, the Plasma Bombard being barrage, which means you don't need line of sight, means that you can just not move, plonk them in a corner, and just keep firing these guns forever. Is that going to be super effective? We'll have to find out. It sounds pretty scary. The Plasma Bombard is their default gun, effectively a plasma cannon that doesn't need line of sight. 1 unit of Saturnine Terminators can set up in an obscure position, sporting 2 of these each, and can threaten a vast portion of the battlefield with relative impunity. Their midfield becomes a no-go area for enemy infantry, fooling enough not to be in a transport. Now, that's one of the things that we don't talk about enough. Sure, these are great at ripping up infantry, but if all the infantry is inside of a transport, what are you going to do? Infantry is also not bikes. Can they rip up bikes well enough? We're not really sure. Can they deal with a bunch of vehicles, flyers? What stuff can they... On paper, when you say, yeah, they just sit in a corner and they just murder everything in the midfield, it might be that they're the strongest thing we've ever seen. It might be that they're not. You don't really know right now. Okay. So we can see what their actual profile is. The range is 24 inches, which actually on a 6x4 board isn't huge. 24 inches, just as an FYI as well. So yeah, they're in the mid board, but they're not hitting like the whole board. Then we have our firepower, so that's 1 shot each. Our range strength is 6. Our AP is 4, which is very, very effective. So it's worth noting that it's AP 4. Which means it's not going to be overly good into Marines. It does have breach in 6, so it means any 6s to wound. This is current rules. Generally, any 6s to wound mean that it's AP 2, so it will be good at killing Marines. Also be good at killing Terminators. And it's also a blast template as well. So you're going to place it down, it's going to scatter, you're going to reduce down your ballistic skill, or that's roughly how it works at the moment. We'll have to see in the future. But it's not necessarily just going to rinse through hordes of Marines in the middle of the board. There's obviously an overloaded version of this, but that just puts its strength up and it gives it overload 2, which pretty certain means that you're just going to take damage on your dudes for having that. But you do have breaching on 5s versus breaching on 6, which is what gives you AP 2. So they're not necessarily perfect for smashing through a bunch of Marines, and there should be a bunch of Marines. We're going to look at the scoring article later and how you score points and missions and stuff. And you're probably going to need a lot of dudes to go and just sit on objectives and do stuff, so you need to kill them. So twin heavy disintegrators are a more direct option, and again, you can take 2 of each. There are 4 they're for devastating elite infantry and dreadnoughts. If you manage to secure a firing position, deliver a full broadside, you can delete entire enemy units. Don't forget, this is all marketing stuff as well, so it might not end up being the case. Range is 24 inches, which is kind of limited if you can't move. They've got 2 shots each. Range strength is 7, which again is okay. It's not super strong. Against armor 13 on the front, you're going to need like 6s. AP 2. and damage 2. And damage 2 is great. And AP 2 is great because it's going to cut through even Terminator armor, but that's fine. And its traits are Disintegrator. Anyway, the Saturnine Disruption Fist is an exotic version of the classic Terminator archetype. It hits with a fearsome strength and damage, so one squad can wreck a medium vehicle or kill enemy Terminators and Custodians with a single punch. You can supplement your short-range threat with Particle Shredder, a template weapon which melts power armor. Lovely. So the actual Saturnine Fist is your initiative modifier is down 2, which means you're going to be hitting at initiative 1. Your strength modifier is +2, so you're going to be hitting at strength 6. Your AP is 2. We love that. And damage is 3. Perfect. Although kind of inefficient, because if Marines had got 2 wounds, no, Marines have got 1 wound, right? Yeah, the Marines have 1 wound. Terminators have 2 wounds. I guess it depends on which of each type. So either way, you're being inefficient with that damage and punching those. So you want to go punch a vehicle. But again, you're just going to be strength 6. It's kind of okay. And then the Particle Shredder is a template weapon with breach at 6. And it's got range strength is 6, which is pretty nice. And AP 1, which is really nice. No, sorry, AP 3, sorry. Damage 1, which is nice as well. Overall, these look like genuinely more survivable than they do killy. At least some of the stuff that I can think that maybe you want to kill. And actually, it really feels like the Fist is pretty good. Like, the Fist is decent. I wouldn't mind. I initially was like, nah, I'm going to go double guns. But I wouldn't hate this. Yeah, and also maybe in combat you hit in the rear of a vehicle. Depends what the new rules say. Maybe they say that, maybe they don't say that. There's lots of nuance to this stuff that I'm talking about, which I'll learn in more detail. But ultimately, they seem fun, which is kind of the main point. Now, this is the thing I need to know before the box comes out. Am I going to build the big hammer, or am I going to build the axe? Or can I go hammer and axe, which is the most important thing that I need to talk about. Okay, much of the Saturnine Terminators he can lead, the Praetor boasts a formidable profile. In fact, it's about as beefy a stat block as Space Marine can get, putting him in the same league as the greatest heroes of the era. Okay, so this is the Praetor in Terminator armor. Let's take a look at this in more detail. So weapon skill 6, woof. Toughness 6 with 6 wounds. Initiative 4, and then look at this. Our leadership is high. Our cool is high. So these are 2 above and 3 above for leadership above a normal Space Marine. And again, 2 up armor save and a 4 up invulnerable save. It's got the War Axe, the Disruption Fist, and the Thermal Distraction Field. And then this is a command unit, and it's heavy. This model may have its Saturnine War Axe or Saturnine Disruption Fist exchanged for the Concussion Hammer for 10 points. Amazing. I think that does mean I can have a hammer and an axe, which is all I've ever wanted. The model may have a Plasma Blaster selected for it for plus 10 points. A model may have a Saturnine Teleportation Transponder for 60 points. And this guy itself is 200 points. So, you know, you could be up to like nearly 300 points or like post 250. It's pronounced an AMA in the Horus Heresy. Okay, an AMA. You can have 1 AMA. But this is, you know, a lot of points. Anyway, Saturnine Teleportation Transponder. A model with a Saturnine Teleportation Transponder has the Deep Strike special rule. While such a model has joined a Saturnine Terminator squad unit in reserve, Saturnine Terminator and Terminator Sergeant models in that unit also gain Deep Strike special rule. So you can just put in with a unit of Termies and you can Deep Strike. And then you can punch a bunch of fools, which is great. The Saturnine Concussion Hammer is your choice for killing tanks. It's already awesome damage, goes up to 4 on critical hit when it also automatically wounds, making it the right choice to break open knights, armigers, Castellax robots, and Ogrins. Even enemy characters need to be careful, as a single failed invulnerable save will likely flatten them. Alternatively, if you're planning to wade into the enemy ranks, the Saturnine War Axe might be for you. The Reaping Blow 2+ rule grants 2 extra attacks when outnumbered in combat, hitting initiative 4, strength 5, AP 2, damage 2. The real question is, which of these are best for doing a duel? That's the real question that we want to make sure we answer, because I need all of these. We can see our strength modifier on the axe is +1. It's got Reaping Blow, like they said. And then our Concussion Hammer is initiative modified -3, but strength modifier is plus ×2, so we're going to go up to strength 8, AP 2, damage 3. You can also wield a tasty plasma blaster, but there's arguably a more useful reason to include the Saturnine Praetor in your army. He allows your units to deep strike as well. So you can see what the blaster does here. Range 18, 2 shot, strength 7, AP4, damage 1, breach and 6. And then you can overload it as well to make it strength 8. Somehow that plasma blaster is stronger than the plasma bombard, which is kind of weird. I would really think this giant glowy orb of a gun would be higher strength than the little pea shooter on someone's wrist. But sure, it's space magic, so it doesn't really, yeah, more focus, less hits. That's what we're talking about. More focus, less hits. Correct. Yes, it burns through something versus just doing an inferno. But yeah, very, very fun. So, I mean, lots of information to take in there, but from my initial read, like, they seem okay. Like, it's a lot of shots, there's a lot of stuff you can do, you can deep strike, but also it's a lot of kind of eggs in one basket, right? If you can build the right weapons to start to worry these guys, you're losing a lot of points each time one of these goes down. Like with the double disintegrators, or make sure that's what they're called, with the double twin heavy disintegrators, each dude is 80 points. Yeah, they're like an egg. They're shaped like an egg, and it's all of your eggs in one army. That's exactly what I'm thinking. It's a big egg army. That's an important thing to say. But obviously the main hero dude is fantastic and is very punchy. And I guess there's a real question, you know, scale-wise, do these feel like they're not even really Space Marines? Do these feel ludicrous? Do these feel OTT? Do you feel like your normal Space Marines that you know you've got your relic armor? Do you feel like it's silly that there's something that's just much better? Is this a nice answer to like Custodies who have their kind of elite version? Can you do Marines that are elite without having to bring Custodies in as allies that can kind of semi go toe to toe with them and have a conversation around that? Is it nice to add that breadth to a Space Marine army so you can go more elite, or you could go the other way and go much more horde heavy? Because don't forget, this box also has a ton of stuff in it for your they have a bunch of Marines in Mark II armor as well. So this, while I think the shoulder pad dudes have stolen the show, there's lots more info, which is cool. I like the eggs. I think the eggs are cute. I think they're really fun. They'll be really fun to paint. Also, another thing that we discussed a lot during the launch of the Old World, because I have a Old World channel, I talk about it a lot there. One of the things that we talked about a lot in the Old World is dragons, and especially large monsters, were very, very good at the beginning of the edition. And while this has been curtailed very recently, not by a lot, by the way, very, very small amount. But one of the things that's really good about that is that you didn't have to paint out as much stuff. You needed your core units, which you were mandatory, like forced to take. So you had to paint a bunch of dudes. But it means you could, early on, as the game was relaunching, you could have a lot of elite stuff, put it on the tabletop and start to play. And this is also true for this. If you want a bunch of people to jump into the Horus Heresy, if you want a bunch of people to jump into it, then having, you know, being able to put 1,000 points into one Dreadnought and like 6 Terminators and a Terminator Lord, basically, that's great. Because it means you've got more people to play against. You know, if everyone's running the big eggs, then you know what weapons to take when you're fighting the big eggs. You know, take something that's AP2 and high strength and just gun them down. So, you know, and then they turn up next time with 80 Marines, and then you're in a different pickle. But yeah, I think this is actually really good for the Horus Heresy. It means you can put a lot of points on the table early, which means you can be playing a lot of games with your friends or starting to make new friends at the start of the edition, which I think is really good as well. And if you're jumping into the edition, this is something for you as well. Like, you can jump in and you don't have to do as much hobby to get started. And I think that's really healthy as well, because you don't want there is going to be a massive buy-in and a massive hobby barrier for more people playing the game. And as I've said before on the show, my job is to get as many people playing games as possible, because I like it when people play games, because it means I get someone to play against, which is fun. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.